Hello, everybody, and welcome to Creative Super Bowl Sunday Talk Show. And I'm your host, Janice Barnett. I've got my beautiful, beautiful friends here with me today. So we're going to just get right into the show. We're continuing with the show about the poet. Everybody remembers the young girl, Amanda Gorman. So the first person I'm going to bring in is Dr. Deborah Isom. She's a prophetess. Her company, her ministry is Begin Again Ministry, and she's also the host of TV 57 Live. So, are you there, Deb?
Here, how are you doing? So
I'm
good to see you,
fine. I'm
Dr.
fine.
Janice.
Thank you
You're
so
just as
much.
beautiful as always. How are you tonight?
And so are you. I'm going to bring in our other friend. She was with us the last time. This is Sarah Chantel, Sarah Mercer Chantel. Are you there, Sarah? Come on in.
Hello.
Hi, honey.
How are you?
Are you still with the Dancing Stars of Atlanta?
Yes, I am. I'm the gala chair this year for 2021, and we're going to be doing it virtually this year. So
What?
it's going to be very exciting. Yeah.
That's interesting. And
That's
you're
gonna be
a realtor
interesting.
as well. So
That's gonna
yeah,
be interesting.
I'm telling you. Well, we'll continue with our part two, ladies, with about the young lady, the poet that everybody's so excited about, Amanda Gorman. Did you get a chance to hear the poem, anybody?
The one from the Super Bowl?
Absolutely.
Yes, I did. It was great.
So who wants to go first? What do you think of it?
Well, I personally preferred the one at the inauguration. But I mean, what can you say about Amanda? Her insight into the society right now and her ability to verbalize some of the things that people aren't unable to uh, speak about.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry, I think, makes a huge impact. I was reading an article this afternoon from the internet, and it talked about how teachers who incorporate poetry into their classroom learning in terms of social justice, history, social, sociology, whatever, is that children learn through the art of poetry. And so I think Amanda Gorman is a great, spokesperson for the use of poetry to explain some of the inexplainable feelings that we may be feeling as a society right now.
I understand. Dr. Isom has a college. She actually teaches a lot of prophetic in her school. What do you think about that, Dr. Isom?
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree with that because children, especially, learn through association, and then they learn like the ABCs. They learn the ABCs by singing the ABCs. And so this is the same concept of poetry. So she says some really profound things through her poetry, and people remember them because there's the rhythm and the rhyme that's within the poetry. And so I was just looking at
Right.
the poem, and I just read over the poem, again here as I was sitting here, and the things that she's talking about are so profound because she's talking about we're talking about athletes in her poem. She's talking about
Right.
athletes, but there's so much more to those athletes because she's talking about them serving in their school, in the
Right.
local schools, and getting computers for
Right.
for those in need and things like that. And let me
Right.
tell you something, that is power.
It
Because you know
is.
what, I like the fact that you said, Dr. Janice, that I was a prophet, which is so powerful because I was sitting in my study time today, and the Lord said this. He said, nothing that we do that's temporary really matters. He said, if what you do does not affect people 100 years from now, it's nothing.
That's
He
all.
said, it means zero.
Well,
As far as the kingdom is concerned. So
well,
I love the way that she brought in all, they play football and they're great at that, and that's wonderful, and we all love it and watch it. But that's so temporal. And it
well,
really, really, really doesn't matter in the scheme, in the big scheme of things. You know what I
right.
mean? So
Well,
I like the way she brings in the important things. And I can hear that through what she writes and says. I hear God in what she does
well,
because it's true. The temporal things are very
Absolutely.
unimportant, but it's the stuff we do that's going to have a long-term effect that's important and what should be important to people's lives. And she makes that so very clear in her writing.
Well,
Definitely,
Deborah, that's
definitely. I like to say that one of the things you cannot deny is that she's anointed. She
Oh
was
yeah.
chosen for such a time as this. Because I
oh,
looked at the poem, even this one from the Super Bowl, and she talked about the gentleman James. And I'm looking at it now where she felt he has felt the wounds of warfare, talking about him being in some type of service. And it says, but his home, he's at home with he shares his home with at-risk kids during COVID. And I love that she said he's even lent a hand to football people and families. And then she went on to talk about how Tremaine is an educator with World Nonstop, providing his community with hotspots, laptops, and tech workshops. And then she puts it in, makes it dance and sing. But she said, this what got me. She said, then you've got the young lady. She talked about Susan, who's an ICU nurse manager at Tampa Hospital. Her chronicles prove that even in tragedy, hope is possible. She lost her grandmother to the pandemic and fights to save the lives in the ICU battle zone, defining the front line heroes, risking their lives for our own. But what I really love, when she wrapped it up, he said, let us walk with these warriors, charge on with these champions, and carry forth the call of our captain. We celebrate them by acting with courage and compassion, by doing what is right and just. For while we honor them today, it is they who every day honor us. I mean, she did bring it home now. She did.
well, Janice, that's also goes back to what Deborah was talking about earlier in terms of what is the impact we are individually leaving on this planet. It's our legacy. And, we think that, it's just lowly me. I can't impact. Oh, my goodness. Each person impacts so many people. We're like when you throw that pebble into the pond and all the ripples go out. You have no idea, first of all, who's watching you,
That's right.
who's emulating you, who's using you as a role model.
That's
You
right.
always talk about your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. We have such an ability to affect so many people, ladies. We
You're
are
right.
so powerful, and we need to
Right.
open our power and use that power for good.
That's
Well,
right.
you're preaching real good not to be a preacher, young lady. You might have to stop dancing.
And she's right. And because it reminds me of the last part of her poem that she did in the inauguration. And she says, if only we're brave enough to see it. See, you got to be brave, not just to see the stuff that's going on in the world, but to open your mouth and talk about it. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But then she says, if only we're brave enough to be it. So, Juanita Bynum oftentimes says, she wants to be the change.
That's
See,
right.
we gotta be the change. We can't just go out and say, well, this needs to happen and that needs to happen. We have to be the change. We have
Absolutely.
to be the empowerment of that change. I looked today I was as we were taping and I was coming out of the studio, I looked at my cell phone and somebody had text, this impeachment hearing is making me sick.
Huh.
And I was like, what are they talking about? They didn't really go into it. So I came out and I flipped on the television to see what was going on. And I heard Mitch McConnell talking. And he was saying, yeah, we all know that Donald Trump was guilty, but we didn't impeach, we didn't convict because da 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 da. That's not being the change, because that's opening the door for somebody else to come in that's a little bit more intelligent than Donald Trump and a little bit got more fight than Donald Trump to come and do exactly the same thing. So when we see something wrong, we can't be afraid to say this is wrong. This needs to change. We
Well,
have to stand up and say what needs to be
and I'm
said.
sorry for cutting you off, but that's why people like Calvin Anderson, who's responsible for this show that we're doing now, has a company called Two Heads Are Better. Because if we don't learn to work together, and he's a poet as well, so I'm
That's
sure
right.
this is touching his heart. This is probably taking him back to his roots of having been a poet for a long, long time. But if we don't come together with two heads and three heads and four heads, and if we can't follow through, or what we know to be the truth. If only we have the courage to see it, like you said, but then you got to be able to be it.
That's
You got
right.
to be able to
That's
be
right.
it. So,
That's
God
right.
is raising up young voices all over the world.
I wanted to bring up another poem that she wrote that I thought was so powerful, and it's called "Won't You Be My Sister?"
Would you be my sister?
Won't you be my sister?
Oh,
And
okay.
I thought, we three are sisters.
Mhm.
We're sisters because we're women. We're also, women of God. And so that binds us together. But here's what she says at the end of the poem, and I wanted to share that. She says, "Hear me as woman. Have me as your sister on purpose battlefield breaking day. So I might say our victory is just beginning. That you and I are women no longer trying to woo men, holding the truth to be self-evident that all genders are created equal. See me as change. Say I am movement, that I am the year and I am the era of the woman."
Wow. 23 years old.
I know. She's just so I don't know, she's amazing.
Well,
Wow.
ladies, I gather that this is beginning to bring the arts, which never should have been taken out of school to begin with, as far as I'm concerned. The arts, to me, are the answer to bringing back class, dignity, respect. Pull your britches up. I'm always on that. It's bringing back the talent into the school that needs to be there, where you have the mentorship. It takes it more than just on a record and on a CD. That's calling girls bees and calling women. I don't even want to say it on TV. But,
Yeah. No,
but the horrible things that
yeah.
they have to pretend to be. They have to pretend to be real gangsters, to be rappers sometimes, and then they wind up getting killed because they're perpetrating something that they're not. There's got to be an outlet. There's got to be an outlet for this arts. We've got to reach out and realize that God is raising the arts up on purpose for us to realize we've got to put it back into the hands of the youth and into the school to where they don't have to be afraid of talking like she talks. She's not talking about killing and snorting and fighting and your mama this and mama that. She's not talking about things that you want to cut it down. It's shame to hear. She's talking about making a better place, being
Well,
a better.
and I think it's also has to do with being confident enough to take the risk, to write your words down. And even if it doesn't rhyme, it's still poetry. It's
Right,
still poetry.
right.
I just think that it's going to be such a big role model and encouragement for the next generation to put their words down and see, once you write something down and you look at it, you can say, "Oh, wow, that's not exactly what I meant."
Mhm.
So the written word is so important in our own self discovery, and also teaching others about history, social justice.
Right. You're absolutely right. It's just
Well,
like,
writing. Go ahead.
no, no,
Go
I
ahead, Jen.
agree. I
Well,
yield.
I was gonna share that. You yield. I was gonna share that writing. We're in a seat. I was doing a Zoom conference a few days ago, and I was teaching. The subject that I was teaching was writing and how to publish a book, how to complete a book, how to bring it in, bring the context together, put it in book form and get it published. So that's what I was teaching. And as I was teaching it, the Lord just began to say that what we need to be putting into these books for this season. He said, "This is we're on an open heaven." That's the prophetic, uh, um, the prophetic season that we're in right now. We're in an open heaven, and so God is releasing businesses, and He's releasing books, and He's releasing people into their destinies currently. So for those who are called to write books, what the Lord was showing me is that we have to not be afraid of the topics that He wants us to embrace. And we can't be afraid of saying, well, I'm not going to touch this because this person may be offended. But you know what? Sometimes being offended is exactly how you break out of being trapped. So sometimes you have to say, Jesus wasn't afraid to say what needed to be said. You have to say what needs to be said, even if somebody becomes offended, because that offense may cause them to become different and be open to hear what thus said the Lord. So I was sharing with them. A lot of times people have topics or subjects that God has given them to share with the masses, and they won't dive into those things because they feel like, well, oh no, that's not the popular thing. That's not the right thing to share. But God says, if I place it in your heart, then that's exactly the right thing to share. So God just began to say that in this season, we need to be writing about relationships. We definitely need to be talking about relationships, because we know that culturally, the relationships between Black people and white people and Republicans and Democrats and all kinds of different sects are broken. Those relationships are broken. And those relationships need to be healed. And the only way that they're going to be healed is through light.
Right.
And light is to bring enlightenment. And enlightenment is the light and the power of God.
Right.
So you have to bring that light onto these different topics. He said relationships, definitely. He also talked about finances. We got to begin to write about and talk about and expose the fact that God says, I am the one who causes you to prosper. And so we need to be, many people are in areas of finance, and they refuse to write books, especially if they're Christians, because they think that they won't be well received. But God says in this season, that's exactly what they need to be writing about, because in this season of the open heaven and the open door, the open egress, we need to begin to speak in those areas and begin to move in them. Another area that God says is definitely necessary for us to begin to write in and talk about is politics, because right now, Christians are so torn and so broken when it comes to politics, because they don't understand how to look at politics. Right. And so those of us who know God, who are born again, filled with the Holy Ghost, we need to begin to write about it. We need to begin to talk about it. We need to begin to share, because until that happens, we're going to continue to be broken. We're going to continue to have that sever between the races, and between those Christians, those who call ourselves evangelicals, and certainly between those of people of faith and those who are secular. But God says He wants to heal those divisions, and the only way He's going to be able to do that is if those of us who know Him and who are called to these particular areas are willing to embark upon them.
Well, prophet, is one thing that I'd like to kind of come alongside you on, is that we got to remember that God has always had a torch. He's always had a mentor and a mentee. And when we fail to raise up people and train them, then we fail to carry it to the next generation.
That's right.
And God will leap over us like He's doing now. And He will grab the 22 and the 23-year-old kids who are not afraid. It's just like in the days of Moses with Joshua and Caleb. They went up and they saw the giant. And they said, we can take this city. The older ones came back and said, oh, no, the giants, the grasshoppers in their sight, they'll kill us. We can't make it, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Guess who God chose and let go in to the land? He let Moses go home, and He took Joshua and Caleb.
Yeah, that's right.
He let everybody die out but them. But He took the ones that could walk by sight, that trusted God. And they went into the promised land, and they took that land. And that's what God is doing with these young kids like Amanda. He's raising them up. Somebody's trained her. Thank God for that mother. I'm back on her. But yes. God's got His hand on the remnant, the ones that He's raising up right now, that's going to speak to this nation. Wouldn't it be fun if we look up? I mean, we always think it's people too old to be a president at 70, or we think they're too young to be. Wouldn't it be something if God raised up a 22, 23, 24 year, 25-year-old man or woman and made them president?
Well, they'll have to change the laws before they can do that. However, it would be, because the Bible says a child will lead them. And you want me to tell you something? That's exactly what's happening. The young people are absolutely, they're leading. They're absolutely leading because, like you said, some of the older people are too afraid to say what they know is the truth.
But they're
They're
not
too
afraid.
afraid.
They're taking the cities by force. What you got to
Yeah.
say about that, Sarah? We're not I'm not encouraging people to get out there and fight. I'm not trying to say that. But I am saying there are some kids that's out there willing to use their voices and be heard. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, we each have been given such power, and in learning to embrace our voice, our bodies, our spirits, and use them. Like I said before, use your power for good, not evil. That's my mom always told me that when I was a little kid, because I was a strong-willed child, and I had a lot of charisma. I mean, I would walk into the church, and everybody wanted to pick up Sarah and pass me around. And Mama said, God gave you charisma and power. Use
For
it,
a reason.
not
That's right.
not.
I realize we've got to go. I see our time is whittling down here. We've got about 4 minutes. But before we do leave, is there anything you'd like to leave and say shortly to encourage the people?
Well, certainly I do. I have two of my books here. And I just want people to know that, you know what? When God first told me to write a book, I was like, what? You think, what in the world? I'm sure the same thing with you, Dr. Janice, when God told you to write your first song. You think, what in the world? But I just want to encourage people that if God gives you a vision, if he tells you to speak about something or talk about something or get involved in something, you know what I mean? You can do it. And the reason that you can do it is because God has fired it. He has placed it on the inside of you. He has birthed it on the inside of you. So it's just so important that young people and old people and middle-aged people and all people understand that if you're still breathing, if you're still on this side of the earth, it's because God still has purpose. He still has a plan for your life. And let me tell you something. If it's in you to do it, get busy doing it, because now I cannot express this enough. Right now is the season where God is saying, Go, the light is green. Go and do
Go.
the
What
things
are you
that God
saying?
has called you to do.
What are you saying, Sarah? We got about 2 minutes here.
Oh, I'm just enjoying the conversation. I appreciate so much being invited to the conversation.
You kept saying go. And there's a song that says, go, go, go. And tonight, that's what we need to leave with, and let people know. We have reached the age in our life to where we realize where we want to go, we can't go anymore. Sometimes we can't. We just can't. But we can teach and train and send the ones that are young and strong and unafraid. And we can get behind them and we can push them. And we can let them know that they can make it, that they will make a difference, make a mark, as Pastor Dollar says. It cannot be erased.
That's
We
right.
got to put our hands to it. We're losing the generals. I noticed today that one of my pastors in California had passed away, Frederick Price. But he left a legacy. We have to be sure that we leave a legacy, and
That's
that
right.
whatever we do, people will remember us thousands and thousands of years from now as someone who cared about what God sent us to do.
Somebody who brought a message. That's right.
I love what Calvin says and what he's pushing. 2 heads are better. God sent them out by twos. That's the reason for it. And yes,
Amen.
I hear you about that book, and I'm in the middle of it, so I'll be to see you, okay? Ladies, I love you, and I want to thank you for coming on with me. I know that you're doing tremendous things in your community, and I'm so proud of each and every one of you, and I love you so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank
You
you.
too. And stop saying that it's up to the young people. We still pushing too. We going too. We
Some
gonna
people
go.
won't
We
get
gonna
out
push
of the way.
we gonna push the young people, but we going too. Praise God.
You bet.
Look, that's because you're young. See, I'm real old, but that's all right. We're not going to tell nobody here today. So anyway, Grandmama is signing off. And I'd like to say to each and every one of you, as a young lady said, Amanda Garwin said it better than anybody I know. She said, We celebrate them by acting with courage and compassion, by doing what is right and just. For while we honor them today, it is they who every day honor us. We love you and have a great day.